Welcome back, everybody. Very excited to be talking about my favorite keyword match type, and I've seen a great deal of success using this match type. It's actually virtually the only way I bid on keywords. I do, when I'm running tests, I'll use some exact and phrase match, and I'll test the waters a little bit. But once I get into it and I figure out what's working, this broad match modifier is what I use. So it is a broad match still. The only difference is that we're adding a modification so it adjusts the ability of Google to trigger ads for variations. So as you saw in broad match, we could have any variety of variations for the keyword. So if the keyword is women's hats, it could show up for ladies' caps, which may not be what I want to go after. It could also maybe potentially trigger ads for ladies' helmets or something similar to that. So the ability to stretch the keyword in a broad match and show ads for keywords that are similar but not necessarily all that relevant is great. And with the broad match modifier, we get the best of both worlds. We get to do the following. So a broad match modifier will allow the keyword that you're bidding on to show up in any order. So if the keyword is men's boots, it can show up for men's work boots, or it can show up for buy men's work boots. So as you remember in the phrase match, there can be no interjection between the two keywords as a phrase. And in a broad match with a modifier, it can still show up if the user has them out of order from the order that you have them in your actual campaign. This is what separates broad match from a broad match modifier. Broad match modifier requires that it's the exact same variation that an exact match uses. So if it's women's, if the key phrase is women's hats, then it can either be women's or women's hats, but it cannot be ladies. So this is what truly differentiates a broad match and kind of saves you from casting your net too wide, is that it requires the same match typing as the exact match on the actual word. It can still be in any order. And point number 3 is there can be additional words in the key phrase that the user search queries. So it obeys a lot of the same rules as a broad match, where it can be in any order and it can have words, additional words in the user search query prior to, before or after, in the middle of whatever keywords you're targeting. But the actual keywords that you're targeting that you qualify as required must be pretty much exact variations of that same keyword. So let's go to Google's site again so I can show you how the examples that they are listing, and so you can get a better feel between the difference of a broad match keyword and a broad match modifier keyword. So here the keyword is women's hats, and Google displays here that your ads will show or may show for women's hats, buy women's hats, and hats for women. Your ads will not show for helmets for women or women's visors. These keywords, if you just had this set up as a broad match, they would trigger your keyword. And obviously, helmets for women and women's visors are not relevant if you're selling, a women's sun hat or something similar to that. So this is the really key feature, and this was a big deal when Google came out with the broad match modifier. It was something that advertisers had been waiting for a long time, and when it came out, it revolutionized the way a lot of pay-per-click marketers were advertising. So this is something I would want to encourage you to become very familiar with, and it's something that will allow you to hit the sweet spot between a wide net and a relevant search query. And all of the other match types that we've gone over really kind of are limited in that capacity. There's either very restrictive or all over the place. And with the broad match modifier, you can kind of live right in the middle, right in that sweet spot where you've got a very wide net and you're still ensuring that you're targeting qualified users. How to dictate a broad match modified keyword to Google. It's actually very simple. When you're setting up your keyword, you will just simply put a plus symbol before each word that you want to require in the user's search query. So I'll go over an example with you in a minute. But for each keyword that you want to require in the query that it be an exact variation of the word that you're targeting, you would simply put a plus symbol prior to the keyword. So for an example here, we have men's boots, and if I want to bid on that keyword in a broad match modified fashion, I would just simply put a plus symbol before men's and a plus symbol before boots. Let's go ahead and come back to my screen, and we'll set up a new ad group and add a broad match modified keyword so you can see the actual setup. So let's go here, and we will add an ad group, and this will be, we'll call this men's boots modified. The keyword here will be men's boots. We'll set a default bid of 150, and we will save. When you come back to your dashboard here, you'll see that it's displayed just as you entered it with the plus symbol before men's and boots. And now any time a user searches for a query with the word men's and boots in it, in that exact variation, your ads will trigger on that one. So there is still a great need for you to be targeting more specific key phrases, even with the broad match modifier. So you want to really kind of find a home between a general and a long tail. And that's where the majority of your keywords should be. That's a general rule that I try to follow, is find the sweet spot between, you know, men's boots and men's vintage brown combat boots, of an extremely long tail keyword. We can go after those as well, but the majority of our keywords should live right in the middle of those two extremes, so that we're targeting users who we know what you want to know what their intent is when they're searching, so that you can serve proper ads and proper landing pages. So again, broad match modifier follows the same rules as a broad match keyword, with the only exception being that it requires that the words that you include a plus symbol in front of when you add the keyword to your campaign be exact variations of that keyword. And the example of how to actually dictate that to Google is simply put a plus sign in front of each of those keywords. This is a match type I want you to become very familiar with. I want you to experiment with, and I want you to run it against some other match types and see what kind of results you get, because my experience has been that this is the best match type, and I get the best results from this match type in all of my campaigns. However, you may find different results, and it could be different for each product and different for each service, or all the way down to the keyword level. Each keyword can require a different match type. But get familiar with broad match modifier. The next thing we're going to be talking about is negative match types, which is very important, so do not skip it. We'll see you there.